Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to look at using social media as a means and a venue for transmission of our message in the health prevention and promotion setting. As you will recall, we spent a lot of time talking about the use of social influence theory and various models for communication. In the 21st century, second millennium, we are now looking at a whole new beast. So let's get started on this unit by looking at what we're going to talk about and examine here. First, we're going to look at social media, and we're going to look at its benefits and how we can leverage those benefits with the more youthful audience that we are trying to reach with a lot of our messages. Secondly, we're going to examine the pros and cons of using social media to promote behavioral change within the public health sector. We're also going to look at current use of social media and associated theories and how some of those theories can be used within the social media context. For example, if we're looking at the socio-ecological model, what level would we be delivering the message that we intend? Would it be the intrapersonal? Probably. Would it be the community level? Very possibly. What are some of the theories that we might use? Would we use cognitive and dissonance theory? Would we present choices and rationale for the best possible choice? The human behavioral model. So there are a lot of things when you look at social communication, when you compare them against the model, you may say to yourself, will not work. And that's totally appropriate. Everybody will have a different opinion as to whether or not social media will be acceptable and will work within a particular theory. We're also going to look at the role of social media to market public health programs and deliver public health program information and how to possibly even use social media to quickly collect data to help you in your endeavors when we're looking at the assessment aspect of social media. You have one assignment, but you will be working on two things this week. And I'm not going to state that you have an easy week, because from the standpoint of submission, yes, you have an easy week. But from what you're expected to accomplish this week, it will be a week where you'll have a lot of busy work. And when I say busy work, what you're going to be doing this week in addition to your journal entry is you're going to be finalizing your final project. And we will discuss that at the very end of this particular lecture. So let's first look at your journal assignment. And for your journal entry, choose two of the following three social media campaign videos. You've got Movember, and I really enjoy that campaign. I have two friends who are adamant about every year getting me involved in Movember and donating to and participating. The second video campaign is CDC's Tips from Former Smokers campaign. Many are familiar with the images that they use to try to induce us to stop quitting based on the fear and the factor of seeing the impact of smoking on one's overall health and appearance. The last is the Public Health Agency for Northern Ireland's flu vaccine campaign. But I think the third one probably will be quite interesting from a standpoint of the work that we did last week. After you reflect on this module's readings, consider whether you think each campaign video is effective in addressing this particular public health issue, promoting healthy behaviors, and facilitating behavioral change. Provide an alternative way to address the issue you choose for your journal. In other words, how would you use social media for this particular campaign? And how would it be better used in the future to address this campaign? Make sure you justify your answers. Remember to consider and apply practical real world to these skills. So you will be talking about, okay, for example, in the smoking. You can give an example of how effective the campaign is where the woman goes from beautiful to basically she looks like a skeleton. She almost looks like one of those aliens from outer space at the end of the campaign. If you have any questions, always refer to your guidelines and rubric, and you can always email me with any questions you may have. Now, I had one student bring something up that I would like to address from last week. She wrote 2 to 3 paragraphs as required by the rubric. However, she did not respond to all the prompts, and she indicated that she felt constrained with the 2 to 3 paragraph limitation. I have stated previously, and I will state again, I do not hit you for going over, particularly if you read the rubrics and read that rubric in conjunction with the actual prompt and the material that is required. And it's very unlikely that in 2 to 3 paragraphs you will be able to provide all of the information requested. If you look at the rubrics, they are designed, if you do proficient in all categories, you will end up with a 90. If you want that A score, you're going to have to do some extra work, which means you may have to supply extra information, which in fact is the most commonly requested element, is that you apply and integrate course concepts into your work. And that will require additional writing, and I will not ding you for that. You will get those extra points. So let's take a look, ladies and gentlemen, at the different social media platforms. And for many of you that pay attention to the news, you will note that this week had a very interesting business public offering, which was Snapchat, which is one of the more common ways that kids are gossiping, and adults are even using Snapchat because of the benefit of once you send your message, shortly thereafter it disappears and the record is gone, which is very appealing to a lot of people who like to gossip or send text messages or emails that when they think about it into the future, they probably don't want anybody to see it. So that's become a popular medium for gossip and exchange of information. However, when we weigh the use of different platforms, I want you to think about, would Snapchat be one that would be appropriate for use in the public health and prevention forum? So when we look at the 21st century, second millennium, we have several options available to us. We have Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Tumblr, blogs, online forum, and wireless tools that provide public health professionals a wonderful way to reach our audience. And in that, wireless tools would be texting, would be other aspects of communication through cell phones, which I believe we have a couple of new ones. So we'll look at those from the standpoint of how successful and would they be if we use them, and would they apply to our particular audience. Interestingly enough, we are in a very odd time when it comes to politics and political messaging. Our president seems to feel that the message through Facebook and Twitter is a direct message to the people. And I will leave that up to your analysis. Do you feel that it is below or beneath the office? Does he succeed in taking the message directly to the people? And one of the things that the president touts in using social media is it is unfiltered and it is not capable of manipulation by the media. What he states in his Facebook page and on his Twitter account is what he states, and the full quote is there and unadulterated. Is that the way to go? Is it beneath the use for public health and promotion? Or is it actually the way to gain access to a crowd that we might not otherwise have access? And to it, the youthful crowd, the teenagers up to those in their mid-20s. Social media can reach those wide audiences to promote health and provide support. There are a lot of campaigns now. I don't believe Alcohol Anonymous has used it as an official program yet, but I know a lot of coaching and mentoring processes that happen in the Alcoholic Anonymous setting can happen through texting. My older brother, who was a recovering alcoholic and a strong member and actually sponsor of several people in Alcoholics Anonymous, did use texting and social media as a tool to reach out to those that he sponsored, and it was quite successful. He also used it in a mechanism to help with a safe home that he and his spouse set up, which basically was a home once people left rehab facilities. They were allowed to enter into a home similar to his, which was sponsored by Nevada, where they would have a safe environment, and as long as they were clean, they got reduced rent and a safe place to live in an environment conducive to recovery. They had a Facebook page that they used for that, and they were one of the early adopters for using Facebook for support. So when we look at the different agencies that are heavily involved and do use social media campaigns and have a strong presence on the internet, we look at the CDC, the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, the World Health Organization, and a lot of state and local health departments are using the social media to reach out and steer those individuals that need assistance to the right resources. You know, when we think of social media, we think of Twitter. It's too short. You don't have enough information space. But if you think about alternative ways of using it to steer people to full resources, it can be quite successful. When we choose social media, the target audience is very important. And as stated earlier, we surely would not use social media to reach out to somebody in our grandparents or our parents' age group. They may not feel comfortable, specifically comfortable with issues relative to their health, and particularly if they're in failing health. They might seem less likely to want to share or be part of a social media network involved in prevention and promotion. One of the things you must be careful of is if you are collecting data for quick short surveys, that you ensure that that data or that the information you collect is not associated with a particular name or person, so that it is HIPAA compliant. Finally, it is very important to consider the education, economics, infrastructure, and resources you have available to you within your community to make a social networking program work. You have to look at the media mode that you will be using, the audience that you will be reaching out to, and specifically the audience that you are reaching to, how well versed are they used in social media, and will they be able to access and readily use the materials provided and understand any information and any direction you give to them to full websites or other resources. So a couple of questions you would ask yourself right up front. Does the community have adequate wireless and internet service? Certainly a social media program in New York City would be much more successful perhaps than in one in Frontier, Nevada like Elko or Winnemucca, which interestingly enough, I've been in both of those communities, and wireless service seems to be catching on everywhere in the United States. Very few places, I would say Yellowstone Park, Glacier Nationals are areas that very limited coverage, but for the most part you've got coverage, very good coverage in some of the frontier communities. And the reason I bring up frontier communities and reservations of the West really do need a lot of health promotion and prevention efforts. So we have to ask the second question: do members of the community have the economic resources to purchase wireless devices, and or are they in places within the community that they will have access to these tools? And one of the things a lot of people overlook is access to this to the wireless and computer network sources. A lot of libraries offer free access points. Also, most cell phones have data packages that are over the internet through routers that are available in many coffee shops and other locations. One does not have to rely on wireless data resources, which can be rather expensive. So perhaps as part of your campaign, if you're reaching out to a lower socioeconomic level, you might make it known in your campaign that they can access this information using free data points at particular locations. Social media gives you the ability to access and provide information to your target audience 24/7. It is a media that has several benefits. Those benefits include it's easily adapted, it's cost effective, and it can reach large and hard to reach populations. It provides a channel for peer-to-peer education, counseling, and support. It's not quite face-to-face, but it is in real time in many instances. And with that real time, you're almost looking at a face-to-face arrangement where you can be working with a individual on a one-to-one real-time basis. And it also has the flexibility for those that may not necessarily want to be on that real-time basis, but to respond on their own time. It allows for that virtual communication to expand into and create virtual communities. And like I stated, the Alcoholics Anonymous support groups are a great example of that virtual community for support of one another. It also offers that last important aspect for a lot of people who are dealing with what one may consider a loathsome disease such as an STD or HIV, and allows them to gather information in total anonymity. Sorry about the anonymity. And it also allows for those individuals to actually seek and find resources that are available also on an anonymous basis. So they are able to search out without anybody knowing that they're searching it out, number one. And number two, they're able to find free testing sites, for example, and sites that are totally anonymous for those who are testing. So that aspect of anonymity actually becomes a huge selling point for a lot of people. Social media does not replace that full all boots on ground campaign, but it does supplement it. So when you're looking at social media, you're not necessarily looking at scrapping your other strategic programs and your other methods that you're using to communicate and reach your projected audience, but you are using that to make your projected audience aware of and giving them specific directions how to access and how to engage in positive behavior in a very short, succinct, and directed format. So I want you to think about have a little bit of fun with this assignment. Be creative. You've all used one form of social media or another. Think about which one will best reach the audience. Alcoholics Anonymous, for example, does texting one another work? Does having that support group on Facebook, which, by the way, you could suggest that they use stage names to keep that total anonymity intact so nobody knows who they are. So to have a little bit of fun with this, be creative. The last aspect of what's expected of you this week is to start working on your final draft. What I would suggest is you take that final proposal, that whole prompt, Use that as your outline. Copy and paste those portions from your milestones, and then start to scour over your final project outline and the information that you've pasted into and put into where you feel that it belongs, and then look and see if you have any duplication or replication, which you will have some. I will tell you, for the safe assign scores for this final assignment, if you look at the ledger or the legend that you have for safe assign, if you go to the top, you can click and you can actually pull down all of the sources and the percentages of match. And you will note the highest percentages of match will be to your own work, because Safe Assign puts your work into their memory database, and that database will compare it against anyone else's assignment that's turned in, including your own. And many of you will notice when you turn in assignments that are 30 or 40, I've not dinged you, because I go in and I look and I see, is that match coming from work that you've actually done or from elsewhere. So from this standpoint, we will start into week 8. If you have any questions, if you have any issues relative to your grades, I think I have 2 or 3 outstanding assignments that I need to grade that were turned in late. I will get to those this week. If you want to go over a plan to maximize your points and come up with the best possible grade in this class, I know we're in week 8. We have 3 weeks left. It is enough time for us to work together to come up with a game plan to help you maximize and gain the most points possible so you can reach the best possible grade for this course. I am always available via email, p.vanash@snhu.edu, and you can always call me at 801-940-2531. Again, p.vanash@snhu.edu or 801-940-2531.